Hi there. My name is Summer Jensen, and I'm the Director of Global People for Young Living Essential Oils. Today, I get to talk to you about the 6 C's of crisis response and how we came up with creative ways to care for our teams during the COVID-19 crisis. And a little background around this program and these 6 C's. When COVID-19 hit back in March, like many businesses, we were required to shift and shift quickly. And with that, we developed some cross-functional teams that identified ways that we could continue business and continue connecting with employees. And the result of that is the 6 C's of crisis response. I think the most important thing to mention here is that the vision for Young Living is to create a healthy home for each of us and a healthy world for all of us. So when COVID-19 hit, we felt like it was really important for us to lead the way and be the example on how to help employees staying safe, staying healthy, and manifesting that throughout the world. So that's the focus of this webinar, and I'm excited to share what we did and what worked well. Like I mentioned, my name is Summer Jensen, and I'm the Director of Global People. We are out of Lehi, Utah, and in my role, I have a team of business partners across the globe who support different segments of the business. I'm very passionate about aligning people and initiatives with business initiatives. And I believe that the most important thing a manager can do is learn how to empower their employees and then create opportunities for each employee to grow and succeed. And even throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, we've continued to develop those opportunities. And that's been a really rewarding experience to see the creativity coming from each level of leadership. I have my MBA in SPHR, and I've been with Young Living now for about 2 years. So today I'd like to focus on 3 areas. The first is 6 C's of crisis response. And then I'd like to talk about tips for crisis creativity. And that is really surrounding what worked well, what I would recommend that you focus on for a crisis plan going forward. And then we'll open it up for questions and answers. So the 6 C's of crisis response that we developed were based on what worked really well for our company and the different areas that we would recommend focusing on. So these are those 6 areas. The first one is care, and it's truly taking care of your people, doing what's best for them while maintaining business. The second one is connection and connecting with your people and allowing them to connect with each other. Third piece is communication and keeping your people informed. Later on in the presentation, I will go over this in greater detail, but I feel like communication is probably one of the more important pieces because employees had a lot of questions. They still have a lot of questions surrounding the plan with COVID-19 and how we're addressing it and we're keeping them safe. The next piece is control, and these are the safety controls that we put in place to protect our people. And these are some controls that you could put in place to help protect yours as well. The next C is check, and that's checking on your people to see how they're doing, having frequent surveys and check-ins with them to make sure that they're doing all right. The last one is contribute, and that's really giving back to employees and the community. And again, I'll get into details on each of these. So the first one is care. There were multiple things that we did when we transitioned from working on site to the majority of our employees working from home. And one piece of that is that we transitioned about 1,300 employees to a work from home model in 24 hours. And when we did that back in March, we did it with the understanding that it would be a 2-week period. And then, of course, things changed and we adjusted, and that's been extended through 2020. The next item that we did was we created flexible work schedules for parents. And that was for the opportunity to be able to have extended lunches, to take care of children, have some flexible work schedules so that they could ensure that their children were taken care of in the midst of so much uncertainty. One item that we did that's been well received was we added 8 hours of flexible reward day paid time off. And this was a thank you for our employees who have been working through this pandemic and adjusting and being flexible in their approach to work. This was created so that employees could take the day off to prepare their kids for going back to school or getting them set up for remote learning, or if you're not a parent, if you need a day off. Really, whatever the need was, that was added for employees to be able to utilize as they saw fit. The last piece was creating a supportive employee chat network. And this included a channel where employees were able to ask questions about their kids' homework. And then employees that were proficient in that area would get on and they would help so that they could better teach their kids if they were remote learning. And we had several channels employees have really appreciated because it allows parents to connect with other parents who have kids in school and help each other with those questions with their homework. The next piece is connection itself, and that's truly about connecting with your people. We created several virtual ways that employees could connect, and I think these four are my favorite. The first one is virtual fitness classes. We have a certified trainer who taught Pilates, yoga, high intensity classes, and you could bring your kids, you could bring dog, and you can do these virtual fitness classes together. And we've allowed employees to have team building where they're doing virtual fitness classes as well, and that's been a lot of fun. The next item was virtual town halls. And these were developed so that employees could ask company executives questions around what we were doing to keep them safe and just general questions about the business. It was a great way for employees to be able to easily connect with company executives and ask them questions that were on their minds. The next piece was virtual happy hours. These were a lot of fun. These are a lot of fun. They're hosted by our people team and executives. Employees dress up according to a theme. It was more like a party, and the themes ranged anything from Disney to Halloween to beach. And it was a really easy way for employees to have that informal connection with executives that was fun and easy, and you could bring your family. So it was a really great way to connect and get to know each other. This last one is selfie style videos, and these were videos that were recorded by vice presidents and above, and they were recorded on their iPhone, and it was a message of hope, a message of empathy to our employees, really a simple way for them to connect with employees, letting employees know how they're doing with the pandemic and working from home, whatever their situation was like. This helped create that emotional connection between several levels of our organization, and it helped our organization feel more connected as a whole. The next piece is communication, and this is around keeping your people informed. There are four areas that we focused on that have been very successful and have helped a lot. It's reduced a lot of questions, the same questions being asked, because we've been able to redirect employees to the resource that's going to provide them the most accurate information. And with that, we've got these four areas. So the first one is an HR-focused employee self-service app. And employees can log in here, they can select a topic, and then they can ask a question, and it will go directly to a people team representative, and they can have a confidential conversation around this topic. So if employees have a question around their 401k, they can reach out on this app, ask the question, and then someone from the people team will respond, and it works like a chat, and they can have a conversation between the two of them and get their question answered in a timely manner. The next piece is our Weil Source intranet, and we launched this just after shifting to a blended work environment. And this is where we house company news, links for helpful tools, company policies, videos, and more. We continue to add content to this daily, and this is a global intranet where each of our regions and markets can add content for their own areas so that employees can see what is happening across the globe. The next piece is our Need to Know and Weil Alert app, and this was highly utilized when we first shifted back in March. This was created for urgent COVID-19 and other emergency updates that were sent to employees directly. In our Weil source, employees would see a notification letting them know a new urgent news article had been shared. we were monitoring information daily, sometimes more than once a day, providing updates on that While Alert app so that employees could stay in the know with what was happening regarding COVID-19, school closures, business closures, and so forth. As we've adjusted and adapted, it's not quite as utilized on a day-to-day basis now, but we do continue to send out updates through that app that would allow our team to continue staying ahead of what was coming as well. This last piece is a fun idea that we created. It was an employee blog, and employees were able to share ideas related to back to school season, including recommendations for keeping track of backpacks, tips for keeping hands clean while at school with our Thieves hand sanitizer. And it was a great way for employees to stay connected, but also provide each other with advice and tips on how to approach the new normal. The next C is control. This was the result of a cross-team collaboration effort, and it came together quickly, and we've modified it since multiple times based on the needs of based on local and state regulations. The first one is our COVID-19 hotline. This was developed for employees to call for guidance if they weren't feeling well and they didn't know if they needed to be tested. The COVID-19 hotline is overseen by the COVID committee, which has people team members on it, and they are available to chat with employees between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. We have English and Spanish speakers so that we can address the majority of our employees. And the way that it works is employees can call in, they can talk about their symptoms, and we'll do a risk assessment and then determine if that employee needs to go get tested for COVID-19, stay home and isolate, and so forth. We also created diagnosis workflows for our distribution center and farm leadership to use. And this is a visual where the leader can look at the visual, quickly assess an employee's state when reporting symptoms, and it helps them identify if they need to send the employee home and have them call the COVID-19 hotline, or if they're okay to continue working. We also offered touch-free product order pickup for employees and customers. This is something that we've continued, and this is very popular. You drive up and you're able to have your order dropped off into your car without ever having to get out of it. The next piece is that we empowered our global markets to make decisions based on the local COVID-19 situation. Really, at the end of the day, we determined that we could not do one size fits all, and it was driven so much by local regulation. So we empowered our leaders to do what was best for their markets. And we had a lot of markets where employees did work from home. We had some markets where they were able to have staggered shifts and reduced employees on site so that they could continue working on site. With that, we reviewed COVID-19 guidelines for local and international guidance and then adjusted as necessary. And that's something that we've continued to monitor daily and weekly to ensure that we have the most up-to-date information for our employees, but also so that we can continue to manage the situation and adjust as necessary. With that, we classified employees as remote, blended, or business critical, and that was so that we could plan for social distancing. We could create those staggered work schedules. It also helped us identify who truly needed to be on site and how much PPE we needed to provide to those employees so that they could continue working safely. That leads me into our last bullet point, and that was that we partnered with our local safety and facilities teams to establish an accelerated cleaning regimen compliant with the CDC and EPA. With that, this was the result of multiple teams coming together and identifying what the protocol should be, at what point it should be initiated in the process, and then carrying that out. And that has been something that's been really impactful for our employees that are working on site because they can see our safety and facilities teams cleaning more. They can see the effect that this is having. They can feel that. And quite frankly, they feel safer coming on site knowing that safety and facilities are doing their part to do an enhanced cleaning regimen. The next C is check, and this is really around checking on your people to see how they're doing. So we did this a few different ways. The first piece was we did an initial employee survey to ask employees how they were doing. And this was right when we sent employees home back in March. And we adjusted how we were doing business on site to have more PPE and temperature checking. And the goal of that survey was to understand the impacts of those immediate changes and the COVID-19 safety protocols. From there, we started doing work from home surveys with questions related to employees who had shifted to working from home to better understand the workspace needs and impacts to their work-life balance, whether those were good or bad. We then created a return to work survey with questions related to how lives may be impacted by returning to work during and after COVID-19. With all of that information, we developed our return to work plan, and that was established based on those surveys, current trends with COVID-19 data, and state and federal guidelines. The return to work plan is something that is very flexible. We have phases for employees to potentially return to work, but again, we move throughout the phases and it's guided by the environment and what's happening locally and statewide. So that's something that we continue to monitor, and we continue to ask employees how they're doing so that we can ensure that if and when we bring them back to the office and we continue with our new normal, that we'll have all of the information available so that we can make the smartest choices for Young Living. The last C is contribute, and this is important for Young Living. We give back to employees in the community quite frequently, and these bullet points are some of my favorite things that we focused on since COVID-19 hit. It's important for us to send messages of hope and love during such a difficult time. So one of the first things that we did is we gave employees money for workspace improvement to help them feel more supported when working from home. The way that we did that is we identified the threshold that we wanted to allow employees to purchase things that would make their workspace more comfortable. We did not mandate what they should or shouldn't buy. We provided a reimbursement allotment, and then they were able to go out and purchase what they felt like would help them in their workspaces. The next thing that we did is we donated personal care products and hand sanitizer to our frontline workers and nonprofit organizations. The goal here was to provide additional PPE for those required to work on site so that they could do so safely and feel cared for by the company. The next piece is we donated 1% of all North American proceeds from our Thieves product line in March of 2020 to Meals on Wheels, and that was a total of over $233,000. We also donated $100,000 to Urban Ventures to be used to improve the lives of South Minneapolis residents. And this last one on International Essential Oils Day, we donated over $290,000, which was 5% of our global sales, to benefit deserving students from developing nations. So we've covered the 6 C's of crisis planning, and my tips for crisis creativity. These are tips that have been developed based on what went really well for us and what didn't go so great for us. So my first tip is put a plan together in case of a crisis. We've all now had to shift how we do business, and putting that framework together for whatever the next crisis is will help you prepare for that worst case scenario and then adjust as necessary, depending on whatever that crisis looks like. My next tip is learn as you go. This is very important because you can't prepare for a crisis. We certainly could not prepare for the COVID-19 pandemic. And with that, we adjusted as necessary. We learned as we went, and we relied on each other, which ties into my next tip, which is collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. And this is so important because at the end of the day, Not one person or team will have all of the answers. And it took many teams coming together with their expertise to develop our work from home program, as well as the safety protocols for employees that continue to work on site, as well as the connection and communication opportunities for employees. So collaborate with one another, rely on each other's strengths, you'll be able to create a great crisis plan. The next one is be flexible. And again, very similar to learn as you go. We've had to adapt and change our program and change our focus several times throughout the pandemic. And with that flexibility, it's allowed us to shift and it's allowed us to address the needs of our employees real time and address the needs of the business real time as well. My next tip is work with the top and ask for their engagement. I think one of the reasons we've been so successful with this program is that the executive team supported it from day one and they engaged, they were communicating with employees, they were part of this program. And that truly, at the end of the day, I believe that's why this has been so successful. My last tip is to prepare a business continuity plan for all types of employees. I mentioned this previously, but we created a global continuity plan. And it was each market went in and added in what they were doing to continue business operations in their market based on local guidelines. With that, we put everything in one location on one presentation so that we could keep track of what everyone was doing and stay on the same page. And it's important to have a plan for every employee. And it was time consuming, but it's well worth the effort to put that together now so that next time you can enact that business continuity plan should another crisis arise. So at this point, we've covered the 6 C's of crisis planning, as well as the tips for crisis creativity. The 6 C's again are care, connection, communication, control, check, and contribute. This has worked really well for our business, and it's something that will continue should there be another crisis in the future. And I hope that it helped you in coming up with ideas for how you can better support your employees and continue business activities. If there are any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Again, this is Summer Jensen from Young Living Essential Oils, and I'm the Director of Global People. Thanks so much for being here today. Have a great one.